I think it's time then, right?
Oh, you have to tell me what time it is now.
It's time for the good news.
Oh, here we go.
The bad news and the other shit. Conspiracy Wednesday. The good news. The bad news. And the other shit. All right. Now, I wonder if all the black folks and the Democrats are going to be mad at me today because, it's time to give the Democrats some. I'm sorry. Democrat convention, y'all.
No.
The Democratic National Convention.
No.
What is that? Just what is it? It's all a dog and pony show. It's bad enough, you guys see. What amazes me is that all of my friends, more of whom tend to be Democrats, okay, because of the demographic. And they talk like they talk about Republicans like dogs. And then they come around and do the same thing. So I'm watching the Democratic convention, and it's no substance in that one either. It's nothing. And it's a dog and pony show. So, but what happens? They make you like it. Now, why do you like it? Because I'm a black man. Black people have had all these struggles, so we love to see black people in positions of prominence. So first of all, let's acknowledge that. I mean, even my white friends say, "Marl, come on, you got to enjoy this." Okay. No,
but put the butter on.
There's a place for that, you guys. Is there not a place for that? So we are happy that the president is there for the image and for what it means to youth. I want to get this out the way because it is important that youth get to see him. Therefore, they are inspired to try harder because they believe they have opportunities that we didn't believe existed for us. Right. So acknowledging that. And I'm going to acknowledge that I love the way the First Lady represents. I love the way she represents womanhood, black womanhood, womanhood in general. I love all that. But that's not what this is all supposed to be about, but I got to get that out of the way because so many of us, that's what we're responding to. And I think that's okay to a degree, but only to a degree. Because remember now, the whole issue is that the powers that be attempt to get you caught up in the revelry. And that's why they don't deal with the substance. Same thing goes to the Republicans. In other words, I'm saying to all of you, my Democratic friends, maybe we're not supposed to get that caught up in the revelry to forget the substance. On the other hand, because I must admit, I'm conflicted. The revelry is so important at this time, I acknowledge. Why? Because in this world where you've had so much racism, it's wonderful to have a moment that makes it at least appear on the surface that we're becoming more unified. Now, you know it's not the way I said it, because I'm not about to buy in 100%. But I am. That's why politically it's such a hotbed. And that's why it's also genius. Because there are truths in this, you guys. We love to see our shining examples. And there is a relevance that we get to see them. I'm not going to deny that. When I look at my mom, when I see the faces of some of the older senior citizen black people I know, when they get to look at a black president, when I get to look at what they show in their face and eyes, see, people don't understand. A world of struggle, a lifetimes of struggle that black people have done. So when certain generations look at that black president, they damn near tearing up. And I cannot disrespect in any way that moment for those of mine who have been through so much to sit there and enjoy that moment. So that's why I say I do want the folks to have a moment of revelry, but I got to say they got to get back to the substance, you guys. But on the other hand, because I want the president to actually do more. See, remember that? Remember, you guys? This is my issue. And I want the president to actually do more. It's not enough to me. See, this is where we're different. Some of us are different. If he's just as good as some of the other presidents that have existed, that's not good enough for me. And for a lot of you, it is good enough. But for me, it's not. So we need to understand each other. It's not. Because you're the black president, I want more. And some of you say I don't have a right for that, and I disagree. And I say I disagree firmly. But that's okay. That's the whole point. Today's show, which is Conspiracy Wednesday, I wanted to address the idea, first and foremost, of the Democratic Convention, Vic, right, and acknowledge the complexities. I wasn't going to come all hard because, like I said, When I look at the face of older black folks, when you watch them look at the president,
Don't take away their.
you can't take that away. I can't take that away from them.
Yeah.
I cannot take that away from them. How much do I love them for their struggle?
Right.
So I can't take that away from them. I may disagree with them politically,
Right.
but I love them. I love them, and But that so that's the whole issue, guys, and we're on the same side.
Well,
we're
the
on
progress
the same
is
side.
relative because for a person who is 20, 30, 40, 50, the dynamics of the experiences and what they've been able to endure or applaud is relative to age. But once you get out of that, what they call the current prospect of living in the age you're in, you have to go back and think about honoring those who have actually sat there in moments and said, I'll take what he has now, even if it's in flip mode. And you know what I mean by flip mode. It's all a power thing. It's about money, power, and control. But it's all relative to the time you're talking about. So, Mara, what you're saying is I'm talking about now. And
well, that's
forward.
that's why I handle the reason why I handle the subject carefully, you guys, is because of how much I respect the people on the other sides of the argument.
Right.
That's why. I think we owe it to them. I really do.
Right.
I think we owe it to all the black folks we know, especially that generation before me, to let them have this moment.
Right.
I kind of feel like I owe it to them no matter what. Then after that, PMC, Mac and I, we can all go back and debate.
Right.
But we still feel like we owe. And that's part of why I do the sentiment. And I think we're on the same side.
Right.
We want the children to see it. We want them to be inspired. We want America to see it. We want them to be inspired. We want the world to see that black man up there as that symbol and be inspired. Okay? But now this is Conspiracy Wednesday. So let's take a look at this piece. This is all about, is America better off than it was? Take a look and let's see what you all think.
You need to know this. The Democratic National Convention kicks off this week in Charlotte, North Carolina. And already we're seeing pretty stark differences between this week's DNC and last week's RNC. 1 week after Republicans unveiled the most radical major party platform in American modern history, Democrats have put forward their own political platform. Some of the planks include a full embrace of marriage equality and a woman's right to choose, comprehensive immigration reform, the right for unions to collectively bargain, support for Obamacare, protection of Medicare as we know it, increased funding for the arts, and cutting off tax breaks for job outsourcers like Bain Capital. You might remember the Republican platform included things like a ban on pornography, a ban on marriage equality, a ban on gays openly serving in the military. While there are too few differences between Republicans and Democrats when it comes to the big issues facing the nation like war, free trade, and the corporate takeover of our democracy, there are still huge differences between the two parties reflected in each platform. Differences that will affect millions of Americans. While Democrats want to keep moving the nation forward, extending civil rights and economic opportunity to more and more Americans, Republicans want to drag us all backward to the era of the robber barons. And the way Republicans plan to win this battle is to ask a very simple question, which is this: are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? The answer is fairly simple. Yes. Considering what was going on in the fall of 2008, there's no doubt that America's better off today than we were 4 years ago. As Think Progress points out today, newspaper headlines from September of 2008 warned of a coming Great Depression, a U.S. economy on the brink of collapse, an impending world crisis. We were losing hundreds of thousands of jobs a month 4 years ago today. We're creating jobs every month now. Check out these charts. In the year leading up to 2008 under Bush, we lost a net 609,000 jobs. But in the year leading up to 2012 under Obama, we've gained a new 1.8 million jobs. And then there's this chart. In the year leading up to 2008 under Bush, household wealth plummeted nearly $6 trillion. But in the year leading up to 2012 under Obama, household wealth has increased by over $600 billion. And for all the rich guys out there, corporations are doing better too. In the year leading up to 2008 under Bush, corporate profits dropped nearly $177 billion. But in the year leading up to 2012 under Obama, corporate profits have already surged more than $186 billion. There's no question about it. The United States of America is in far better shape than it was 4 years ago. But that's not the important question. Democrats need to be asking their own question back to Republicans. And it's a question that should be the theme of the DNC over the next few days. And that question isn't, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? It's, are you better off today than you were 30 years ago when the Reaganomics experiment began? 30 years ago, more than a quarter of the workforce was unionized. Today, it's a tenth. 30 years ago, the United States was the largest exporter of finished goods and the largest creditor in the world. Today, we're the largest importer of finished goods and the largest debtor in the world. 30 years ago, our national debt was below $1 trillion. Today, it's nearing $16 trillion, with most of that debt run up by Republican presidents Ronald Reagan and both George Bushes. 30 years ago, workers' wages rose with productivity. Today, workers' wages are stagnating, while CEO wages are at historic highs. 30 years ago, we weren't fighting endless wars in the Middle East. Today, we are. 30 years ago, there weren't 50 million Americans living in poverty. Today, there are. Republicans want us to think that Americans' problems all started 4 years ago. In reality, they started 30 years ago. They started with Reagan and his tax cuts, his war on unions, his deregulation agenda, his embrace of free trade, his attack on social safety nets, his obsession with privatization. Reaganomics was carried forward by Bush Sr., to some extent by Bill Clinton, and in a big way by Bush Jr., setting up the great crash of 2007 and 2008. And now here we are 4 years later, dealing with the aftermath of 30 years of failed economic thinking. Mitt Romney's hell-bent on repeating the same policies of the last 30 years. President Obama has tried to change things. He's tried to reorient our economy to benefit workers instead of CEOs. He's ended a lot of predatory lending policies. He's signed the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay for Women Act. He's taken away from the banksters much of the student loan business. You know, when Nancy Pelosi was running the House of Representatives, they produced literally hundreds of strong pieces of legislation that would have raised wages, brought our manufacturing jobs home from overseas, and made the rich pay their fair share for the cost of running this country. Almost all, however, were defeated by Republican filibusters in the Senate. It's going to take a lot to undo the damage of 30 years of Reaganomics. But it begins by asking the right question, which is not, are we better off than we were 4 years ago? But are we better off than we were 30 years ago? That needs to be the message coming out of the DNC over the next few days.
See, the problem I have, you guys, and I'm just going to raise the variables. I don't know the answers. I love what's happening in the chat room because the chat room reflects the discussion that is.
Right.
Is whether or not the president first of all, whether or not the president should even be expected to do anything that's changed. Those of you who say no, you guys, I keep going, we can't ask for it. I would suggest you're settling in your mind that I don't want to do that. I want to stick to the principle. You could say, Mario, you could ask for whatever you want, you ain't gonna get it. But I think we should ask that the president be better. But that's the first controversy. And the chat room's acknowledging it.
Right.
Should the president even be expected to do anything? Okay, then the next one is, if he does expect to do anything, is he even have the ability?
Can I ask you something?
To do anything.
Let me ask you this, and I agree, and I'm not trying to make light of this with this type of question. Now, this is all fictional, Mario. You ever watch Robin Hood?
Yes.
Did he have his merry men?
Yes. That was a whole different group. They were in San Francisco. Norman knows a bunch of the merry men.
See, I was going serious.
Norman, you know them?
He went there. I'm not trying to say that.
The merry men.
I'm just saying.
I know them.
See, wait a minute.
They sing Christmas carols in West Hollywood.
Wait a minute.
But you know what? See, here's the PMC. Now, let me know what, Vic.
All I was trying to go to is this. You say Obama, but you need the merry men.
That's what you really, kind of ain't gonna happen. Okay. And see, that's what PMC's point is. PMC is taking a real practical position about. I'm acknowledging the position. He's saying, what is it that you really think you can? But I'm trying to deny the position. I'm acknowledging it by saying it's very true.
Right.
What the president doesn't do these things. What do we want him to do? But I'm saying I can still emotionally, spiritually, in my consciousness, hold you to a higher plane.
You can always do that.
Whether am I going to get that? Right. Hell no, because you don't get to be president to me. See, to me, the power structure is set up differently. You don't get to be president unless you sit in a room and say the right things to the right people. You don't even get to run. And Obama did that. He sat in a room. He said the right things to the right people. That's why BP didn't get sued by the U.S. government. I'm sorry.
Name a president who didn't say the right
sorry.
thing.
No, none of them, because I just said you have to do that.
So let me ask you this.
Therefore, I'm telling you, I'm indicting the politics of the entire country. Of course I am.
Right. Now, let me ask you this. You're talking right now, and I always say this, but you're talking because there's a target group. If you're talking to a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old, and you're talking about the politics and the celebration of the political system, you're not going to talk to them in a lecturing way. Would you talk to them as if you're a teacher in elementary, as it relates to how our system works here in the USA of America?
That's so hard.
I want you to understand. I'm talking to kids and not adults.
Because it's a hard talk. Okay, you guys, most of us who are out there who even think we have an understanding of politics, didn't it take us a long time?
That's what I'm saying. So
it took us a long time, Norman. I don't know, Mac. It took a long time.
So your platform right now is really to the power that be. Now
the intellectuals, Vic, right, because it's hard to understand politics. First of all, only a certain amount of people are listening.
Right.
To it, and then only a certain amount of people even have any kind of understanding on any kind of level.
And in higher education, aren't you, and you can relate with this, being told this is how the system runs?
Yes, you're taught that it's wonderful.
Okay, now, so when you're talking, you already know the power, let's just say this, I'll call it Obama, whether it's Bush, Reagan, and the married men. And some women are in there too. But you know what it is, it's not gender specific. They're already knowing what they're doing. So you can't be talking to them. So you're not talking to the
You know what I'm doing?
market.
No, you know what I'm doing, you guys? And I'll be honest. I'm attempting to do something I think is hopeless.
See, that's what I'm saying.
See, I know what Victor's getting. Let me tell you what he means. Let me tell you guys. Part of my love and my reason for doing this internet television was my desire to educate the masses. But in a lot of ways, educating the masses is like trying to teach a pig to sing.
Right.
It wastes your time and it annoys the pig.
And who's the masses?
The people out there, because what you were trying to get them to do is to help mobilize them intellectually so they will work harder toward improving their own situation. In other words, it bothered me all of my adult life and most of my younger life why it seemed that the world did not care about certain things.
Right.
I couldn't understand why the world didn't care.
Right.
To me, you were supposed to care.
Well,
and I didn't even want to go, like I wasn't wanting to go out and join and Peace Corps, Vic. I wasn't ready to sacrifice myself. I was selfish, but I still couldn't understand why the world did not care about certain people. I couldn't understand it.
I think the example is no different than this platform. And you're going to say related to that. Mar, you do sit back and say, I'll help you with your interactivity, your technology. I'll take care of you. Don't you say that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, now when you say that with the goodness of your heart, right?
Correct.
Then the investments or the money comes in that says, we like what you're doing with the people. We want to grow your business. And business is power. Power is politics and so on and so forth. So at a certain point, you want to exercise and go after that wonderful goal of inspiring people. You're philosophically, strategically on a mission. You know where you're going with it. Now you're around the people that says, we're the ones that got the money. Now, they say, when you get in the room with these guys with the money, this is how they're going to grow your business. At that moment, are you really worried about as much whether they believe in this is the altruistic thing or you want the investment in capital? What are you looking at?
Well, I think you have to look at your long-term goals.
Well, I'm
now, let me tell you about problem with me personally.
Right.
The problem with me personally is that because of other things that I did, other ventures I did, the schooling that I did, the fact that I went to school took me 12 years to get to one level of education. And it's because I spent all those years seeking academic excellence, I found myself in a position where I was relatively taken care of. I was comfortable.
Right.
I was comfortable, and for all intents and purposes, it looked like I would be comfortable the rest of my life. It also looked like I could make those dear to me comfortable, too.
Right.
Now, I've been working hard at what we've been doing, stuff like this, for 20-some years.
Right.
It ain't never been for money. Never. So now you get to a point where you say, what is it about? See, so what I want, that's why I cling so tightly to the people who represent my successes.
Right.
That's why it makes a difference to me what Mac does, what PMC does, what Norman does, what DeVoe does.
Right.
Because all this time, you recognize what you're trying to do is to educate the masses, and you learn first off they are not necessarily going to be grateful for any of that attempt. Okay, but you have to let that be because it's a choice of how you view the world. To me, I had no choice. By that I meant I've felt this struggle personally my whole life. Therefore, I had no choice but to embrace it, okay? So when I sit in there with those executives, it makes no difference. You can't buy me with money. I've had enough of certain things and successes that no longer intrigues me.
But
okay, I've had the power, I've supervised, I've done all that.
But that's not the question. Even Apple, with Steve Jobs, said, look, I'm creating something here out of the warmth of my heart, my vision, and everything else, but still Apple has to battle Samsung.
Right.
You're still in the battleground.
That's the hard part for me to do. So
I'm looking at this as a business enterprise because it's part and an extension of me, even though internally I want to help everybody else.
I don't know
you have to get in the room with investors. Now, are you going to go after investors or are you going to say, I'm not going to do that?
Sure, but you know what happens is I think what happens is one of the good things about internet television, it can be multiple things to multiple people. One of the things I always was interested in is selling the platform.
That's right.
Business to business services. Now, you know what happens, what I'm saying is when Vic and I do the same work for other people, they will pay us, okay? Understand? They ask me all the time, Mario, what would you do? Okay, so we will get paid for doing exactly what we do for the businesses. And I don't have any trouble because the business to business services, even intellectually and spiritually, I like the idea of making money off the entertainment industry.
Right.
Especially the businesses. And then being able to turn around and help educate you. That is Robin Hood.
Well, let me say this.
That's what I wanted to do, but it's a fantasy.
Let me say this.
It's a fantasy.
The money that comes in, if everybody had to say, let me stop and get the trail of where this money is coming from so I know who's behind it, I said all of you guys would probably say, okay, I'm not going to get involved in these goods and services and products. And some of you go like, it only matters when I know where it's coming from. I'm in the room.
No, you got to work with dirty people.
Right. I'm in the room to sit there and say, I have to be in the room because this is how business has always worked.
Right.
And I can still help others. But I have to be able to say, if it's at the extent that I have to do something that may or may not take a piece of me, and I have to deal with it in accordance of a way where there are going to be some losers to get more winners, it'll make me think of like the Schindler's List example I always tell you about. You may have to have those who are suffering, whether they don't take the knowledge or not, but you're trying to empower others along the way.
Well, that's what we will see.
Gift.
See, and it relates to okay. Some of you think that's what the president is doing. I don't think so.
Now, see, that's
Let me be really clear.
Different.
Let me be clear.
Yeah.
When I'm forced to be at that situation, and Vic and I have talked about this because intellectually, I told Vic, I am not about to ask you to invest your life and work your ass off for me to be involved on some hippy-dippy kind of journey. I said I wasn't going to make that. I said, but there's also the fact Vic knows me, that I believe that all my life I have found that when you are excellent, when you work hard and outperform the other folks, money comes.
Yeah, it's going to come.
Money. I said, I've never had trouble getting a job in my whole life.
Right.
Okay, because I outperform all the other people.
Right.
Now, what I've told Vic, I said, I'm not going to work like this is a hobby. Okay, but Vic knows that what do I care about? I care about. Vic knows my hippy-dippy side. I care about what we do to the world with this and the fact that I can teach the little man how to have his own part of internet television. If I couldn't do something relevant with this, it would mean nothing to me. Okay, you have to understand where Mario's coming from. There's parts of me you just can't buy because the money ain't gonna solve none of my problems. You can give me more money. I must be a richer dude in a bigger house, still just as weird as I am today.
And let me say this, and I hate to say this, and I don't have the factoids on this. You don't have to convince the people in power of exactly what the choices are because people in power find a way to say there's just too much power for us to continue to enrich ourselves. What you're spending your time on is getting people to kind of catch up with, you need to learn how to do business, but before you do that, be an expert at your business before you get in the ring. So you can't decide who has the right money and where it's coming from until you know exactly what you're doing.
Oh,
with your
sure. I
own.
don't think you can do that.
You can't do this. So
that's too difficult. It's not practical.
I know that.
You can work. In other words, I said to Vic, wouldn't I sell the businesses services
all day
to the Hollywood community?
Right.
Of course, they don't care about my mission.
No.
They just want to be able to run some internet television.
So at the end of the day,
I'll sell them services.
Right.
But I will come back and teach you, Mac.
Right.
I'll come back and teach you, PMC. I'll come back and teach you, Norman,
now,
and
watch
show
this.
you the same technology that I'm working with over there. Because
Right.
I'm hoping, I'm praying, I'm living for the fact that we are going to do some incredible things with the same technology, and we ain't got millions and millions of dollars.
And
but we
won't.
will do this. We will beat them. We will outperform them right in their face.
Now,
Watch
let me say
us.
this. Let me say this. The reason why I think a lot of this doesn't matter to me is because when your money comes in and it comes from wonderful people, and they do feel the way you do, but they actually endorse a Republican or a Democrat president that all of us, or you are saying in the group, has not performed to the greater good of those who are struggling and disenfranchised, but he has a wonderful philosophy and mission. I said, at that time, you're getting the money coming from him, and he says, look, this is the side I'm choosing. That money is not going to interrupt your flow unless you're involved in a political lobbying side for the president. So really, all you care about is the money that's coming in. He just happens to be for this president. This one happens to be for this potential president. You're just looking at, I got the flourishment of money to operate my business. And I said, where do you separate that? I said, you're already in the ring.
You do separate it because, to me, my point being, even though, is that the difference between the parties is actually way less than you think.
That's what I'm saying.
It's more spoken
Right.
than actually what you actually see. Remember, the Republicans are behind
What?
a lot of the immigration reform because they're helping the businesses.
Right.
And even though their people
Right.
in the Republican Party say, don't do this, we're against this, they did it anyway, right?
Right. They sure
Why?
did.
Because it helps their constituents who have the money. The Democrats are no different.
Right.
And when you really go look historically, you find things like that actually look like the money that the Democrats and the Republicans historically agree on 90% of the budget.
Right. Now, what did the
So
video-
go look at you guys.
Look.
They agree in the money. They're doing a song and dance for everybody. That's my thing. Now, yes, it does affect crumbs. When you have a Democrat president, you get a few more crumbs. But baby, know that it's crumbs.
Now, let me ask
Know
you this.
that it is crumbs. Because all the real meat is still going the same way. Obama is spending his money on defense the same as Clinton and the same as Bush. Okay?
Let me
All
say
right?
this. In your video piece, did it not say, that's why I said when people are up in arms, they look for a difference. The video piece that you actually put up there said, you know, under Obama, it's better. Far as
Well, it is better.
Now, what I'm just saying.
Crumbs, that's your
what I'm
crumbs.
with. Better crumbs.
It's better,
Better
but
crumbs.
look what's happening.
I know.
Ain't the rich folks buying up all the real estate?
Wait a minute, Mario.
If you got
Which I-
money right now, you are happy
Wait a
as a
minute.
clam. You are buying everything.
I've talked to some people the other day when I was at certain events, and they're in certain industries, and I say this before, and I said it, and I'll say it over and over again. If anybody was talking to you about the economics of stuff, manufacturing was really what they called the birth of where things were going as it relates to goods, services, import, and exports. And I remember our industry got hit, and when it got hit, everybody says, get ready, you guys. It's all coming down. When it's all coming down, it trickles down. Now, as it trickles down...
There's that trickle down
the
again.
industry...
If the master got a bunch, you
And
got
I'm
an extra
saying,
ham at Christmas.
I sat there and said, and when it came down to programs, federal programs, what have you, I remember somebody said, you know, manufacturing, Clinton is really for, you know, taking full advantage and giving manufacturers what they call more support as if they really needed it. Bush came in and said, I don't think they need extra money to get them more business. I said, so really what this is about, not about the little man, this is about the corporate interest.
Totally.
Now the part that I got out of this, that didn't affect me as much as it did during the Reagan era when the unions got busted.
No, because when
More
you have
people.
more money, when the
Right.
economy is better, the poor man gets more
Right.
crumbs. That's
Now,
the truth.
Now, watch this. This is the part that got me. When Reagan affected the union, of course, a lot of people lost their jobs. Their empowerment.
busted,
He
like-
busted them. Now, it affected people downwind, real estate and everything else. But real estate was so good because we were already in the life cycle of you can buy a house you can't afford because we'll sit back and touch your credit and allow you to
at
get
an
it.
inflated price.
Right.
And the house price
Right.
was so inflated.
Right.
Okay.
So it already had started way
Yes.
before then. So what I'm saying to you is you're supposed to learn the economics of the business and the lifestyle you live in. So
You're
that way
supposed to, but
you're
most
supposed-
don't.
But okay, so we're talking to a different group about the business of politics or the politics of business.
Unfortunately, we're talking to a group who sort of doesn't care because they don't feel empowered any damn way. And the truth is,
that's
they
right.
are broke as shit.
So now
So
we
we're
know who we're
talking to
talking
all
to.
the broke. Right now, I know. I'm talking to broke folks relatively.
Right.
Or when I say broke, even if you got enough money to pay your bills,
You still
you
broke.
know you one
Right.
illness away from having major financial crisis.
That's right. That's
okay,
right.
that's me too.
Right.
Shit. So we're like, okay now. So what is the point? The point is, I don't know what the goddamn point is. Like I told you.
See,
Remember I told you I felt the inherent need to help. I could not sit back in my house and sit by the pool and do nothing.
you didn't want to have a lazy.
I could not
conscience.
sit down and do
Right.
nothing. How the hell do you do nothing?
Nothing. No.
See, this is my issue.
That's true.
So at my point, I didn't know what to do, but I said I must try to do something.
Right.
To do something to affect the masses of people and how they think. With the internet television, I saw a chance to empower you, and then I had to trust where you would take it. I had to trust that you would try to do things, and I still believe in that trust. So what Vic is getting at, these are all the troubles that we are faced with now. As success rolls in here, how do we compromise at Pack Stereo
That's
as it
right.
relates to $1?
Right.
Know that I don't care about those things, but on the other hand, I'm not stupid.
Because you're selling a business.
I'm selling a business,
That's right.
but I got principles that I built it. I remember, I've been working 20 years like this for no money. I've been working 20 years like this, paying for it.
Now let me
20
give you,
years.
Now let me give you here's a stat. This is why I say I love this part. The part about this is this shows you. I used to have to go consult and tell people to. Don't you want to grow your business? Manufacturers create jobs. Jobs then, in turn, stimulate the economy. Everything is in rotation. I remember going to companies and they said, you know, I can help you grow your business. Now, this is way pre-2000. I don't want to grow my business. I said, okay, do you know the study about...
That's what Starbucks said.
Okay. So
That's what
wait a minute.
Starbucks said.
But yeah, he doesn't. Right. My whole point is that you can't avoid it when success is coming your way. So let's just say you don't want to. And then all of a sudden you say, I'm a stand pat. I'm getting more business than ever. I don't want to hire more people. I don't want to manage more people. I don't want to do I don'ts. I said, but it's coming. So how are you going to operate your business
I'm
that's
not
flourishing?
Okay, here's the thing, you guys. I'm not going to shoot myself in the foot, primarily because I feel like I owe it to my people to do better than that. I owe it personally to Victor Allen to perform better than that. I'm never going to do that because inherently my loyalties extend deep and for very, very special reasons. So I refuse to shoot myself in the foot as it relates to the business because that would be unfair, first of all, to my partner. Second of all, it wouldn't even be fair to you listeners. I need to try to struggle. And I'm not saying I got answers, but I need to try to struggle and juggle with the concept of what equals success. What do we want to do for success in this business? And know that I'm struggling with it. And that's why you can trust that I'm never going to steal from you, but I'm never going to be bought out just for money. On the other hand, that could be a problem if money doesn't make me go where you want me. You may want me. You say, Ma, I want you to go here because of the money.
That's right.
And you over there being la-la man.
Right, so you
And
got
I'm saying, so I'm not trying to be la-la man. What I'm trying to do is make sure I look out for my people, okay?
Everybody.
And make sure, if I take a road, I'll make sure Vic is not necessarily affected. I will come to him and say, Vic, what do you want me to do relative to this? Because I can't take you on every one of my journeys, I know.
I believe in the Shark Tank. And I truly believe this. And I'm from this world where they say, look, you want to get they do background profiles on everybody as to where the money gets invested and where it goes. And a lot of times people like to set up hurdles, a lot of hurdles before they make decisions. And I know that when you sit there and say, look, I may have to do something in the beginning, but I have a long-term goal, then you'll still reach what your philosophy has always inherently been. So to me, I say you have to be in the room with the Shark Tanks because you really can't tell a lot of times the difference between one or the other if you have this idealistic approach that you say, hey, look, it ain't about the money, but you have to sell the success of the business. So we don't even use the term money. Let's just say it's going to be a successful enterprise. And then we just stay away from saying the words money. Then I said, well, then let's go talk to the people who actually have royalty. They go like, money's not an issue with us. We just want to make sure your business is successful. Good. You go to the next room. He says, you know what? They told me your successful enterprise is great, but don't say anything about money. All right. Then you go to the next room. Everybody says, we've decided your business is about to grow. And I sit there and go, is anybody going to say anything about money? He says, you don't worry about where the money's coming from. You're going to be successful. Well, Mario, that's to me the Shark Tank mentality for me. Is what are you really trying to do when they're saying we're about to grow your business? You're going to empower other people. You're going to create jobs. You're going to stimulate people. Here it is. Now, most of the money's coming from two fractions. Half of the room is Democrats, half of them are Republican endorsement. I said, now, at that moment, do you care? Or do you sit there and say, well, I don't want the money from the Democratic side or the Republican side?
No, I think you take money from everybody and do what you want. That's what they do.
See, that's what I'm saying.
That's what I plan to do for you. Now, I'm going to take money from all of them and then do what we think is right. And we're going to try our best to be an example. All I can tell you is I'm going to try my best. I recognize the responsibility, and thank you those for hanging in. We fixed that stuff. We fixed it on the air again, but we had some problems. We fixed it.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you all for questioning these things. Always continue this question. But I want you to understand where my head is. My head is to be seeking of the opportunities that's going to better the positions for the people I care about. And that's working people worldwide.
Yep.
Everyday people worldwide. Whether it be Africa, Europe, Asia, China, these are all our people. These are all our children. We're going to develop a universal attitude that extends beyond just our own community. You can start out with loving black people. That's cool. That should be your place if you black. And then let's move on to loving the world and recognizing all the universal brotherhoods in there. Because believe it or not, people are struggling worldwide with these same issues that we are struggling with. Believe it or not, it's worldwide that we have to combat government. Worldwide.
I just say this. I've been around people who are very aggressive, very successful. And I understand there's some things that go along with it. You know, certain attitudes, go at any expense. And I've been around a lot of people who start off their first line of defense is what they don't want to do, who they don't want to deal with, what they are trying to avoid. I said, that's wonderful if you're comfortable. But you almost go like, let me tell you the hurdles of I don't. And all the people that I know who say that most of the time are not really that successful. They may have personal comfort,
right,
but they're not that successful. So the ones who say, I don't, and I want to avoid, now I said, you kind of remind me of people trying to move up to North Montana in the woods.
We're
try
different.
to avoid it. I can't do that.
No, we're going to be different because what I'm used to you all is I've always tried to outwork my competitors, and therefore I always get the offers. I expect that Victor and I will receive and continue to receive offers to work on various projects because we're going to be leading the charge in terms of attempts. Do you know we have well over 6,000 video clips uploaded? Over 6,000.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Over 3 million some views just playing with this. So what I'm saying is that we have to just ride it out, but just know that we're dedicated to you. In the meantime, we're going to try to be excellent, you guys. We're going to try to be excellent with our programming. We're going to try to be excellent. So I want to thank you, Vic, for bringing up these points. Okay. You know, today we were talking about, on Conspiracy Wednesday, the challenge of the president. And then it was really nice how you helped to turn that around to us looking at ourselves.
Yeah.
And the challenge of who we are.
Yeah.
And what we expect from ourselves. Man.
I'm telling you.
You know what? POC says every time I start talking about the government, the computer shuts down. And you know what? I couldn't get into RT.com this morning.
Really?
Yeah, so there is some things that maybe we on that list about those things. Remember now, you guys, what I represent. I'm not under the control of there, so I could be construed as a threat. Okay? Because we talk about the truths. And so, you know, that we could be construed, but we're not. Because what are we for? The peace and happiness of today's working class people.
Yeah.
You know, who are everywhere around the world, that they can have a little bit. You know, it just seems so much. Like I said, what are we supposed to do? Say nothing? What am I supposed to do? Go sit by the pool?
That's cool.
And shit, just sit out there and do nothing? See, I say it because that's the way I feel. People say, yeah, go do that. No, because I have such contempt for that. I'm not about to go sit by the pool.
See, I have to pretend like I'm talking to children and not the adults. And how would I have that conversation if I'm talking to the youth? And I know I can't put them in a pessimistic point of view of hopelessness. I have to be able to give them hope because you mold the minds of them. So somewhere along the way, I feel that obligation. I don't have to worry about talking to the adults. You've had many times to go out and do your own empowerment. But if I'm talking to a room of aspiring young kids, and I
got to talk about money. But remember, though, I do believe, even though to some people it is cliche, I do believe that excellence brings money. Because in my life, every time I've kept myself true to the cause, I got paid.
That's right.
I got paid.
And you get.
So I'm just saying that. But you got to come when other people were sleeping. I didn't sleep.
And let me say this.
Okay.
Let me say this. If you guys ever want to know the doctrine of a successful corporate enterprise, is just go look at the companies you work for. That's all you have to do. I mean, I sit there and say, I really don't want to know a lot of information, because there's a small pyramid group that goes up like this. And I said, now you now are getting close to the group that says, we've been up here for a long time. You do a good job of talking about that stuff. Too bad.
No, come on, maybe we need to move on. We were going to deal with the South African miners today. I'll put that off to next week.
Okay.
Just in a nutshell, the South African miners who were protesting got fired on by the police military, 30 people killed.
Right.
Now they're being charged with the murders of those people based on a law that says if you're involved in events similar to what we have here that leads to a death, you're responsible for that death. So now the survivors from the shooting are being charged as murderers.
Right.
We'll talk about that next week on Conspiracy Wednesday. I want to thank again all the folks in the chat room, PMC, Mac, all of them for being part of this, Norman too. What a day in politics. What a day. I feel like catharsis. I feel like catharsis. Everybody, that was the good news, the bad news, the other shit.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you to the team. Like I said, would never be the same without you. God bless you. And thank you.